Hi, it's Andy Fry with Quantas Consulting, and you are joining the Quantas Allocation Engine webinar. So my name is Andy Fry. I'm with Quantas Consulting. I'm an Oracle projects consultant. I have over 17 years of consulting experience, primarily in the Oracle project suite. And I work with companies in various industries, including pipelines, utilities, engineering and construction, oil and gas, professional services. So the result of using the Quantas allocation engine is it saves time by performing project allocations that were previously done manually. So if you're an organization that is performing your allocations manually, doing a lot of transferring of data on a monthly basis or weekly basis, then this tool might be right for you. Provides better project reporting and analysis by matching costs and revenue. It saves a lot of time with error handling. So the automated process actually has good error handling and a rollback feature to deal with any errors that might occur during the allocation procedure. And really what it ends up doing is it frees up a lot of resources to do more analytical procedures on their projects versus just the processing of data. So the purpose of the tool, it's really to provide project-related organizations with the ability to allocate transactions that can't be met with the standard Oracle allocation functionality. And these types of allocations can be revenue-based, unit-based, any unique percentages, spreading out costs or revenue to projects that, in a really creative manner. It saves time by automating the allocation procedure, and it provides better data on their projects. So any organizations that can benefit from this are really project-related organizations that are performing a lot of manual allocations or adjusting of entries. Organizations that require allocations that can't be currently met with the standard functionality. Any organizations that require revenue-based allocations, and that's not available in the standard Oracle allocation process. And companies that require a complex allocation process. So if that's you, this tool might help you out. The benefits of using the Quantas allocation engine: it performs allocations that can't be met with standard functionality. There's better costing and revenue matching. It streamlines the processes to save more time, and it removes the need for a lot of manual allocations. So the basic problem we're trying to solve here is Oracle projects, the allocation procedure, only allows you to generate allocation transactions with a burden or miscellaneous expenditure type class. So when you create that that automated entry, even with the standard functionality, it's going to just generate your burden or miscellaneous allocation. So if you need to do or stamp those transactions with a usage or a time card, standard process doesn't do that. So the other downfall of the standard functionality, standard process, is that it only uses the one expenditure type and one expenditure org on the allocated transactions. Extensions are available by Oracle, but there are limitations with that as well. And allocated transactions are all stamped with one transaction source. So what that does is it reduces the ability to be able to query an expenditure inquiry and determine what allocation process actually created this. So we're just going to jump right into the examples here. So here we have an example of a straight time card. So you can see here our transaction source is Oracle Time and Labor. We have two transactions for 8 hours, totaling 8 hours. And what we did here is we had a process that actually split out that 8 hours to the various tasks that it was to be allocated to. So I want to point out a few things here. One is we actually allocate out each transaction. So you can see here the first two lines represent, there was 2 transactions for 2 and 6 hours. They're split out based on a percentage. It maintains the expenditure type of the original transaction. It maintains the expenditure type class. So you can see we actually allocated out straight time charges. It has a unique transaction source, so we can identify that this is a straight time allocation. This is what this client wanted to name it. And you can see that our unit of measure is still hours. So what we did here is we maintained a lot of the same characteristics. I'm just sliding over here, and you can see the expenditure org is maintained, and even the employee name is on the record. So what it does is it maintains the same characteristics and data that is on that original transaction and allocates that out. So this is really good for organizations. Let's say you've got a DBA or you've got users who are charging to one project, but those those time cards should be spread out across multiple projects or clients. Again, a DBA is a good example where they're doing their work, but they may not even know all of the clients or projects that this time should be charged out to, and it's going to be too cumbersome to go and charge and break out your time on a daily basis to multiple projects and multiple tasks. This process will do it, and it'll maintain again the employee all of the time, all of the attributes on that transaction. So here I'm going to give an example. I'm going to show the allocated time card allocation percentage, and this example here was 21.9%. And what I did here was I'm actually going to give another example of that same charge. So I have a transaction that I entered in for 10 hours. You can see our transaction source is blank because it was just a pre-approved batch. My expenditure type is salary and wages. Expenditure type class is straight time. What I do here, and the way the process works, is we run a procedure. It's a concurrent request. We identify the allocation rule that we want to use to split out the time. And you can see here the log file actually shows us the percentages by project, by task. So you can quickly come in here and see, are my percentages accurate? Or if you have to troubleshoot some of the allocated transactions, you can easily do that. And you can see here I have one transaction that was allocated because I have my 10-hour charge. And you can see my 21.9% of 10 hours is, of course, 2.19 hours. So again, what it did here, it allocated it to my project. It maintained the same information, expenditure type class, expenditure type, stamped it with a unique transaction source, and maintained the employee number. So that's really helpful where we're not just dumping hours. If somebody needed to do some analysis on the charge, where it came from, who this person is, it's there. It's all on that transaction. The other transaction that's identified in gold, that's the reversal of the entry. So you can see there that, or sorry, pardon me, that's the actual original charge. So you can see there the 10 hours. Pardon me. So there's our 10 hours. And I'm just going to slide across so you can actually see the expenditure org is maintained. The expenditure item date is maintained. You can see a lot of the information is maintained on that charge. So I'm going to give another example here on the allocating of revenue. So here we have some revenue-based transactions. So what this client wanted to do was actually split out the charges so we can see our revenue is generated, and what happened here is you can see that the transaction, the allocation that occurred, the unique transaction source, and here we have the offsetting entries. So in the previous example, we didn't offset that time card, and we could have, if that's what the client wanted to do, but they didn't. So they had their 10 hours and they split out their billable time. In this example here, the client wanted to offset their revenue. So they generated revenue, they allocated it out, and they need to offset it, which means reduce the source transactions. Of course, you need to do that for revenue, otherwise you'll be doubling up on revenue. So here you can see it actually reduced our revenue entries automatically. It has a unique transaction source, so we can identify the cost. It says site fee cost relief. That's what they wanted the transaction source to be called. It has a unique expenditure type and the amounts. And you can see here the entry didn't create any cost. So it was just a revenue-based allocation. So here is just one of the screens that actually stores the allocation percentage. So in our the example we just went through, we had this allocation that is going to be split across these 5 projects, and the tasks they'll be charged to, the expenditure types they'll use, and the expenditure orgs that will be stamped on those records, as well as the percentages. So there's various methods that we can use to actually allocate out our charges. So other types of transactions to allocate, of course, we can do, our burden and our miscellaneous. We can actually stamp them with WIP, usages, straight time, supplier invoices, inventory. We can stamp, any transaction attribute on the record. So employee name, vendor name. If you've got DFFs that you're populating, we can put those in as well. The source transactions can also be identified on the allocated transactions with the original expenditure item ID. And the allocations can be run really at any interval, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, whatever interval is required. So I'm going to go through the configuration. It's going to be pretty quick here. I don't want to take up a lot of your time on the configuration. But you can see here, this is where we can create some unique transaction sources. Again, really unlimited number of transaction sources we can create. We have had clients that have had numerous transaction sources based on the different types of allocations that they're running. What we do here, there's various ways of us being able to store the allocation logic. So we like to use the standard allocation rule screens because a lot of that information can be there, it can be added, change. We can key on a lot of that information. So you can see here, here's our screen. We really just create the name. We're not really using a lot of this information other than the allocation rule name. But you can see down at the bottom, for those of you who aren't familiar with this, you're only limited in the standard functionality. You're only limited to one expenditure or one expenditure type class and one expenditure type with those allocated transactions. So here we're populating that because it's required, but we're not going to use that information. And we're going to identify our source project information in here. We can actually exclude certain transactions from being included with the allocation logic. Again, our target information is identified. And here is again a allocation percentage screen that we've created to identify the allocation rule and the percentages. So here we can actually just list our rule and the projects and tasks that we want to have those transactions charged to. So it's a very, very easy way once you set it up to run this and have this running and distribute out either your revenue or your costs or a combination of the two. So I'm just going to quickly touch on the rollback feature. So the rollback feature allows users, if they've created the allocation incorrectly, this might be where we're missing some revenue or there's a lot of charges that haven't come through, but we accidentally ran the allocation too quickly or before we should have, we're missing a lot of transactions. The user can roll that back. And what that means is the allocated transactions will actually reverse out. And any of the transactions that were originally picked up will be flagged so that they're eligible for the next allocation run. This is really valuable for month end. There's transactions that are missing. Somebody accidentally ran it. They notice that there's an error on some of the percentages that were there. They can roll it back, fix it, and then rerun it. So to summarize our webinar, the presentation that we just went through, we can allocate really any type of transaction. We can generate any type of transaction, including straight times, inventory, supplier invoices. We can use unique transaction sources. We can maintain any of the source transaction attributes. We can create revenue-based allocations, and the rollback feature allows for correcting of any major errors. So organizations that have used this tool, they've been able to better match their revenue and costs. They've been able to distribute and share revenue for items like packages or bundled services. A lot of other clients we've had that have used this, they're bundled services where they wanted to be able to split out that revenue and recognize that revenue on different projects. It's been a really good tool for them. They've been able to save time with upfront setup of the distribution percentages. It just improves better overall reporting. Saves time by letting the system do the allocations rather than doing it manually. And you're able to distribute out and allocate out costs or revenue. So if you do have questions on this tool, you're welcome to contact me. If you do want to check out some other tools that we have, you can check us out at quantasconsulting.com/articles. We have a few other different tools that we've built and clients have used, and they've benefited and saved time and resource time and improve reporting with those tools. So I want to thank you for your time and have a great day.